Hello, and welcome to the Unsung CX Heroes podcast, where we take a brief but deeper look into the practical world of a customer experience professional, someone you might not have known or had heard about before, but after the next 10 to 15 minutes, you certainly will. I'm Carl Charisse, the founder and principal of Horizon CX. We help organizations, both large and small, either get started along the customer-centric pathway or improve their customer service delivery by better understanding customer needs through listening to the voice of the customer and deriving insights that will help drive the business forward. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to a good friend and colleague, someone who also happens to serve on the Horizon CX Advisory Board, Mr. Rich Dorfman. Rich is the Vice President of Customer Experience for Eastern Bank here in beautiful downtown Boston, Massachusetts. Rich is a results-driven, skilled, passionate customer experience change agent with a proven track record of innovating and operationalizing industry-leading CX discipline. He has extensive experience in voice of the customer program design and execution within retail and commercial banking, wealth management, and insurance lines of business. Rich is a subject matter expert in qualitative and quantitative market research, data analytics, omni-channel experience, employee engagement, and compelling storytelling to ensure a strong customer first, culture that drives financial outcomes. Rich, welcome to the program.
My pleasure, Carl, and thanks very much for that flattering introduction. I just hope that I can live up to that billing during our conversation today.
I have every bit of confidence that you will. So Rich, I want to start out here by saying first that banking has its own unique set of challenges brought on by this pandemic, and not the least of which is keeping branches open while maintaining physical distancing requirements, while also trying to maintain revenue goals amidst near zero interest rates and meeting customers' increasing expectations. And as a small community bank, I would also imagine that a steady eye is being kept on strategy and brand performance as consumer behaviors have likely changed and will keep evolving as we move forward. Tell me, how has COVID-19 impacted the way you interact with your customers from a CX perspective, especially given that banking is an essential service?
Well, it truly is an essential service, Carl, but like every business or organization in the world, disruption and then adaptation became the new normal due to this pandemic. For our customers, every single touch point with our brand brought with it a new challenge and indeed also some great opportunities. For example, in-person banking. We had to, like other businesses, had to close our branch lobby to walk-in traffic for safety for our employees and for our staff and for, of course, the customer. And that left for a time period just the drive-up windows open as our only physical location to bank. Half of our network has them, the drive-up window. So we really curtailed the way in which we can do in-person banking. Branch hours were also reduced to keep the spread of the pandemic at a minimum. So lots and lots of pressure on that staff and our customer base who were highly dependent on it. Our customers use our branches quite frequently. But the most profound impact here, Carl, was with our call center. That's where the majority of our person-to-person interactions occur. Hundreds of thousands of interactions every month. So think about that for a second. Our call volume during this early spring period doubled, tripled, and in some days quadrupled, just in a matter of a few days since the outbreak, because the in-person options were so much more curtailed. And that resulted in huge times waiting on hold, frustrating our customers and indeed our employees as well. So the diminishment of these live transaction channels in the early days of COVID also created a huge spike in our self-service channels, the online and mobile banking. And many of these customers of all ages, but especially the the older generation were using digital for the first time in their banking. So it was definitely a learning curve for them. So this is where the disruption, though, met up with adaptation. At our branches, for example, we went to a jury-rigged appointment setting service for customers where they would call into the call center and eventually they would log into a form where we would schedule branch visits. Helped a lot, but this multi-touch protocol didn't really make it too easy on our customers to do their in-person banking, which was often their preference. It also greatly extended the call time even further because people were calling into the call center to set the appointment. At the same time, we were pushing more traffic to the handful of drive-up windows, sometimes causing line waits of 20 or 30 minutes. Enterprising of our branch staff, however, said, okay, let's help mitigate some of that line wait. They would walk out and in cases take deposits or else help other deposit our transactional capabilities for our drive-up customers and ease the pain as much as they can. It was a balancing act. Every day was a new challenge, but every day we came up with one to overcome it. So that was the early spring and summer, but I got to focus back on the call center for a second because, again, most volume, most profound change, and in just normal times that would be tough. So we're combining COVID, we're combining increased volume, and on top of all that, we were doing this in the midst of a massive technological migration of on-premises call center environment to a cloud-based one. So we're really putting a lot of stress on our staff and our management there. So overnight, our staff had to vacate the premises, learn to adapt to a home office environment, and make calls with kids, dogs screaming in the background, you got it, and dealing with all this tech that had to move from an office to their home. So they are heroes in our opinion. Talk about unsung heroes. They are the unsung heroes in my opinion, but they stepped up to it and they helped create as best a customer experience as possible, given all that. And finally, the self-service channels. Volumes there also spiked, 150, 200%. Never seen before. Customers were going onto our mobile app, doing banking like that for the first time. That actually caused more calls into the call center for log on, password resets, all kinds of stuff, including how to pay bills. We were really trying to integrate all of our channels, even though they were operating independently. They became intermeshed overnight and in very challenging circumstances. So we've invested heavily over the years, even pre-pandemic, into digital transformation. So the good news is we knew that we had to do this anyway. This pandemic, however, just accelerated that process for us. Our development efforts doubled and tripled overnight to upgrade our self-service channels. We moved our 3-4 month migration to this on-premises call center in a matter of weeks. So people were putting in some pretty long shifts. And basically we were getting ourselves back in order again. The disruption, though, was not just to the consumers, as you probably would imagine, but to the vast number of our small business customers. They were hit so hard, trying to keep their lights on with lack of customers. So our business banking team and support folks were hand-holding them with the business, keep their business going, getting them these PPP loans, enabling them to defer loan payments. And now we're dealing with all their cash flow crunches and actually helping them with their loan forgiveness. So the CX team was in the midst of all of this, working with our business partners to identify key areas of improvement across all these channels, all in real time, all under stress, and helping them figure out which ways are the most important pain points that we can get the low-hanging fruit fixed on, and the opportunities that we were going to surface for them had to come in real time, basically to keep our customers and our employees happy. So a lot going on during this early spring and summer period of time.
Holy moly. Wow. Rich, that's a lot of changes that your banking customers have had to deal with. And I can say I haven't been inside of a bank physically since for the last 6 months here. I'm curious as to how the pandemic has impacted the way employees at the bank, branches especially go about doing their respective day-to-day jobs. How's that going?
Well, it's still going and we're still figuring it out, but the immediate aftermath of COVID was, you know, the determination of essential versus non-essential personnel. You know, we're an essential business. We have to keep the financial flowing going for our customers. So branch staff go to work. They have to deal with this. They have all these protocols. Essential office workers, the technologists who have to get the computers, laptops out to folks. You know, every employee though, other than those essential ones, now we're starting to work remotely beginning in mid-March. My last day in the office was March 10th, Carl, right? So management needed to really adapt to all of this, to pivot around the understanding of how to move to a distributed workforce. I mean, there were ideas and thoughts around doing that anyway, given the congestion around Boston and the commute time going crazy every year. But this, again, accelerated all of that distributed workforce mentality overnight, right? We had to not only get our employees technically up to speed with the computers and multiple monitors and all the things that you need for an office, but we had to make them feel safe, keep them engaged, and remaining productive in their new work from home environments. In addition, we were trying to help them understand and work with their pressures, their concerns about the frontline workers who had to deal with, you know, disease every day, you know, from each other and customers. So a lot going on from a management point of view, and our CX team was part of this process, the protocols of understanding all these changing dynamics. We were part of a series of surveys to ascertain employees' challenges in their new work from home environments and in their essential at office or at branch locations. So we were constantly feeding insights to our management team. So really this opened the door that was kind of not all that way open prior to this, where we were getting employee engagement, employee feedback, almost in fact more equal measure than sometimes the customer feedback. As you know, as a CX person, employee and customer satisfaction are so integrally combined and intertwined. Now our senior management was really getting that firsthand. So that was really kind of cool. Other things that were going on and how we were adjusting was, you know, setting up now a reservation system or registration of your desk space for hoteling. You know, people still needed to come into the office to pick up some supplies or do mailings or access the files. But because of COVID, you just can't walk in. So we had to set up a reservation system because the mandate was we couldn't have more than 20% capacity in any one of our buildings. So overnight, we had to adjust to that. Again, work streams were part of the CX team where we're working with our management and leadership who are figuring this all out on the fly, investigating journeys that will create more and better efficiency with working with one another remotely or at a location. Now I'm working with the facilities folks. We're actually planning for post-COVID, right? So now when we can get back to work in our office locations safely, what will that look like? We know it won't look like it did before COVID. So what will it look like? It will be a part mix of working in an office versus working remotely. The answer to that is yes, but we don't know exactly how that will play out. All we know is that we need to figure that out. And the CX organization is in the midst of that as the insight gathering arm. So we're really in the middle of everything right now.
Sounds like change is a constant there. Wow. And it sounds like, you know, that you're undergoing a lot of digital transformation and being forced into it, I guess, by COVID. but not unlike many other companies that are being forced to do similar things here. Can you speak a little bit more about that digital transformation and maybe a little bit more specifically?
Yeah, I would love to. I think every organization is going through this, quite frankly. But with this overnight change by the pandemic, profound and rapid shifts by our customers moving to alternative channels such as online and mobile banking, it's causing us to rethink how we do business to make it happy, good for them and happy for our employees. All this accelerated the plans we were already putting in place for digital transformation. For example, we had already moved to a much more robust consumer online banking platform a few years ago, but we were just finishing up our business migration for online banking. So we had never asked our business customers what that was like. So I was involved with, and our team was involved with understanding, how did that transformation go from an old archaic business online banking system to a new state-of-the-art one, providing instantaneous low-hanging fruit insights for our banking team, how to improve that. In our call center, moving to that for a second, some of this technology that I was alluding to, such as chatbots to offload the easy to answer questions, what are your branch hours, how do I reset my password, those kinds of things, to offload 10 to 15, maybe even 20% of the call volume, so that the more challenging questions that an agent can answer would be directed to. So that is an ongoing evolution. We introduced fairly recently queued callback. Rather than waiting on hold for multiple minutes, that call time has gone down since the early days, but it's still up. We're now allowing our customers to tap and say, call me back. You won't lose your place in line. And this way they don't feel frustrated. And they actually feel like, oh, that wasn't so long a wait. Thank you. So we're doing these things to make it more comfortable for our customers and less strenuous on our staff. Other channels are being, evaluated and accelerated and improved upon as well. But it didn't even mention ATMs. That's one of the oldest self-service channels, as you know. So starting in early Q1 next year, we're going to be replacing our old fleet of ATMs for state-of-the-art technology in that area, making self-service banking even more efficient and a better user experience. One of the things I'm told they're going to be doing is having contactless ATM transactions involving your smartphone. Perfect application during a pandemic, right? So this way, the concern about virus and touching things will be mitigated. And things like video conferencing, which we've experimented with in the past, but now our customers, through things like Zoom and all these other video ways to reach out to people, are making our customers more adaptable as we are helping to help them adapt. So video conferencing for other than transactional activity for conferences will be put into place. So a lot of things are going into our digital transformation, and this is only building upon our own mindset of Eastern Bank being its own fintech, a way that we will continually survive and thrive based on the fact that we control our own fate through constant digital innovation.
I love some of the things you were talking about, Rich, especially the callback feature, because, I've had that experience myself where I've been on hold for a while and I don't like being on hold for 20 minutes, but if I can punch a button and have somebody call me back, boy, I really like that. I really like that. That's a cool.
Yeah, and it makes it, you feel like you're more in control that way. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yep. Well, I'd like to wrap up the discussion here with one final question now. Beyond the pandemic and your digital transformation efforts, what do you see as the biggest challenge in getting Eastern Bank to be, let's say, even more customer-centric? Because it sounds like you are quite customer-centric, but how do you get even more customer-centric and maintain your position as a CX leader?
Now, you might think it would be technology-based based on what I've shared with you. And indeed, it's important. Or it might be having all the data at your fingertips around customer data and customer integration of that insight across all these listing posts. That's important too. But more than all of that, the biggest challenge and opportunity that we see here is human. Gaining alignment, all the way from top management through the business line leaders down to the front line and back office. That really puts, in actionable ways, the customer first mentality, the outside in approach. That is really, the foundation of what we do as a CX practitioner and professional. And, you can talk about that till the cows come home, but until you actually are putting that into practice day in and day out, and something as crazy and as profound and unexpected as a pandemic, well, maybe there's a silver lining in all that, and that is getting this alignment. Because, Eastern Bank is a very good bank. We've been around a couple of 100 years. We're regarded as a strong servicing environment. But it was almost like, we're good. We don't really need to improve much. We're good. That complacency was something that, as a CX leader in the organization, was something I wanted to guard against. This pandemic taught us you can't be complacent. You have to have the wherewithal and the mindset to focus on the customer, and that comes from the top of the house. And that's what makes being a part of the CX team so encouraging and so rewarding, to be part of that ecosystem, to drive the health of the business and the brand by being customer first. But beyond that, Carl, the pandemic and the digital transformation efforts, curiously, have created a much greater sense of urgency, as I mentioned, around customer centricity. And our customers are now seeking that. It's making it easier for our customers to adapt as well, not just internally. So this is making it easy for customers to try new technologies, to be more digital first, to do things more safely, more effectively, more efficiently. So we're learning together. And our job is to teach our customers and our fellow employees that there are better, more efficient ways to do things, even as an old legacy company that is so old, we practically invented the term silo, right? So we're really breaking down our silos. We're creating this alignment. We're building the technology. We're creating the work streams for both the employee and the customer. And we're trying to create this ecosystem where everybody wins. Now, make sure we have our pencils and erasers, because the minute you put a plan down into place, something's gonna change. So that's the cool part of all of this, adaptability.
Yeah, that's really cool. I guess when you dealt lemons, you make lemonade, eh?
That's for sure.
Okay, Rich, I want to thank you for your time and sharing those insights that I'm sure listeners from both the financial services industry and hopefully other industries can relate to, and perhaps take away some of your ideas and consider them among some new best practices, especially under these pandemic conditions, which I get the impression will still be with us for some time to come.
Absolutely. And it's been wonderful talking with you. Hopefully this is an enlightening piece of insight for your viewers, your readers, your following. And it's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Well, same here, Rich. And I'm sure that these insights around Eastern Bank and how you responded to the pandemic conditions will be of interest to lots of people. And I hope you all have enjoyed this brief but insightful discussion out there in podcast land that we're calling Unsung CX Heroes. And I invite you to stay tuned for further episodes by visiting the Horizon CX website listed here on the screen and subscribing to our blog series, since that will get you automatically in the queue, not only for these monthly blogs, but also for the Unsung CX Heroes podcast announcements. Thank you once again, Rich, and thanks everyone for listening.